Tony has been seemingly killed by the Hulk, and now the Ultimates must figure out what to do next without the Iron Lad to lead them. Welcome to the Comicstorian Complete Story Series, where we take trade paperbacks and single issues and we break them down into digestible binds to help you understand. Then we read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. If you enjoy these stories, be sure to support the industry and go check them out at your local comic shop. The Ultimates continue today as we see how the team handles losing their leader and how they want to move forward. We also see today what the Makers Council is up to while the Ultimates fight for the people. This is The Ultimates issue number 7, An Ultimate Universe 1 Year In by Denise Camp. I hope you enjoy. As they walk through the streets of Brooklyn, Steve Rogers looks down at the newspaper in his hand that asks the question, who are the Ultimates? Where did you even find a physical newspaper? They put everything in this thing called the internet now. Jim Hammond, the Human Torch, says at his side. Steve sighs and smiles at his old friend. Don't do that, Jim. You're as old as I am, Steve reminds him. But Jim shakes his head and reminds Steve that he's been rebuilt several times. So technically, he is younger. Finally, they round a corner and find the bar that Steve had been talking about. See, I told you I knew where I was going, Steve says with a smile. The two sit down in the ale house, with Steve reminiscing about how he and Bucky used to come here before the war. But Jim knows what they really need to talk about. Look, Steve, you and I both know where this is all going. War's coming. A fire will grow. We've been through this before. But the others? You saw how shaken they were after Tony. They're not used to losing people. They aren't ready for it, Jim tells him. Steve nods his head and looks at his friend. Then we'll have to get them ready, he says simply. Jim nods and sighs. I wish we didn't, he says softly. Steve puts a hand on his friend's shoulder as their beers arrive. Me too, he agrees. Nearby, the television plays the memorial event for the attack on New York. Steve and Jim watch for a few moments before raising their drinks and clinking the glasses. To all the ones who don't get saved, we are so sorry, Steve toasts. And to Tony, who brought us together, we'll try not to let you down, Jim responds. At the event, Hank and Janet stand on the ground, listening as Father Murdoch gives his speech. But Hank is uncomfortable. Although coming was his idea, now he is worried that someone will recognize them as members of the Ultimates. But Janet shakes her head, reminding him that they have never been seen outside of their costumes or without masks. Hank nods, but he is still nervous. People have died because of us, Jan. Innocent people. Directly or indirectly. I thought it would be good if we could mourn together, he says. Janet nods and kisses her husband on the forehead. It was a good idea, Hank. Besides, after coming back from heaven, we're supposed to be laying low, she says. But some members of the Ultimates have different ideas. At a nearby Oscorp warehouse, Hawkeye is continuing his crusade. The security guard raises his hands as the archer aims his arrow. Please, we don't want any trouble. We just work here, the guard says. One of the workers nods and puts up his own hands. Just tell us what we need to do to get out of here alive, man, he begs. Hawkeye smiles and adjusts his aim slightly. Stay very still, he warns. Arrows fly through the air quickly, passing by all the workers and embedding in the boxes of weapons. Moments later, the arrows detonate, leaving the warehouse smoking and destroyed. And when the workers turn back, Hawkeye is gone. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the world, protesters are shouting for freedom and democracy, waving signs and protesting peacefully, but their government doesn't care. Police have arrived, tear gas is thrown and weapons are brought out, but there is a light in the sky. The hero, known as America, descends on the crowd and turns her glowing eyes and power upon the police. Their armor begins to melt and fuse until they are trapped inside and fall to the floor. The protesters look on in shock as she smiles and waves at them, before disappearing into the sky and teleporting all the protesters home. Meanwhile, outside the realm of Earth, Thor and Sif walk towards the World Tree, which gives them access to the 9 realms. Sif explains that she told the others that she and Thor had spent too much time on Midgard, that they need to tend to the other realms, where they would sow chaos against the All-Father Loki. The Asgard rebellion begins now, so where should we start, Thor? She asks. Meanwhile, floating high above Earth, on the secret satellite that acts as a base for the Ultimates, She-Hulk slams Doom into the wall, demanding that he send her back to the island, to her people. Joanna, as I said, I cannot, Doom gasps. But Joanna slams him into the wall again. But Doom is calm, explaining that if she returns, she will be captured by the Hulk, and they will peer into her mind and learn of the station's location and destroy them all. They will discover everything about us, he says calmly. She-Hulk's face softens as she realizes the truth of his words. But my people need me, she says softly, lowering Doom to the ground. He nods. Perhaps I can tap into the Hulk's surveillance system. You won't be able to be there with them, but you'll be able to see that they are safe, he offers. She nods. Thank you. That will be better, she says as they both look down at the stasis tank, which holds Tony Stark, still mending, unconscious. We must keep going. We owe it to him. We owe it to them all, Doom says softly. She-Hulk nods and reaches out a hand, placing it on Tony's tank where he floats gently. Only 11 months remain until the Makers return. After the battle in Paradise against the Hulk and his acolytes, the Ultimates have gone underground. Their work continues, but now it is quieter. But the work of the Council also continues. Nick Fury stands on the bridge of his helicarrier, watching the monitors as his agents work beneath him. One of the monitors shows a man at home with his family. They are in their backyard, grilling hamburgers under a sunny sky. You wouldn't know it just looking at the man, but this man is a terrorist. You wouldn't know to look at his criminal record, or the charity work that he does, or the friendly things he does to help his neighbors. But last Tuesday, after a few too many with friends, Keith turned to someone he shouldn't have and said, "Do you ever wonder if these Ultimates might have a point?" This is what makes Keith a terrorist. Above him, the sky has suddenly gone dark as a storm cloud rolls in. Lightning suddenly arcs from the sky and strikes him dead. His family screams in panic as Nick Fury watches. He turns to the agent working the controls. "Nice work, Agent. You throw a mean lightning bolt," Fury comments. High above Keith's home, where hand agents have already arrived and begun searching the premises, the hand helicarrier continues onward, disguised as an endless lightning storm, as it continues the work that the Makers set before Director Fury. Fury smiles and turns away from the monitors. "Another day making the world safe," he says to himself. He turns from the bridge and makes his way through the carrier, passing agents leading an anthropomorphic duck in handcuffs. As he arrives at a meeting room, he checks his watch. 35 minutes. Inside the room, the council awaits him, sitting before a holographic image of the Earth. "Thank you for waiting," Fury says as he stands before the most powerful people on Earth. Captain Britain, ruler of Europe and the east coast of North America. Emmanuel da Costa, leader of the Society of South America and the Black King of the Hellfire Club. The Rasputins, the mutant czars of Eurasia and Limbo. Emperor Sunfire and Viper, Emperor of Hinokuni. Ra and Khonshu, lords of the upper and lower kingdoms of Africa. And the incredibly enlightened Hulk. ruler of Asia and the west coast of North America. Fury looks around at them all. Their faces betray that they do not like to be kept waiting. But Fury doesn't answer them. He answers directly to the Maker himself. "Glad you could all make it. I've been meaning to get you all together for a while now," Fury tells them, watched over by a smiling image of the Maker himself. He paces the room, explaining that he has been monitoring the Ultimates for some time and begins to update the Council on their current activities. But as he speaks, Fury's mind begins to wander down the pathways of his memories, fighting against the Nazis and eventually becoming a spy. But then, things become blurry. He was wounded in 1944 and was approached by the Maker. Suddenly, his mission changed. He was hunting superhumans, leading the Hand. But Britain interrupts his briefing and his train of thought. "Enough of this tiresome backstory. We already know what the Ultimates have done. Give us something new," Captain Britain snorts out of boredom. Fury nods. "Well, following Dr. Banner's failure in Kunlun," Fury begins, but the Hulk roars and smashes the desk before him, his eyes flashing a dangerous green. "Careful, Director. I have recently rediscovered an appreciation for mindless violence. I know that I killed the Stark boy. I felt him die in my hands," Hulk growls. Fury nods and holds up his hands, glancing quickly at his watch. 19 minutes. "There's good news," Fury says, motioning to the hologram, which begins to show images of the Hand's efforts at spinning the narrative, showing the world that the Ultimates are truly terrorists and out to get them. 12 minutes. Omega Red grunts and waves away the idea. "An information war? What about a war? He growls, saying that they should hunt these Ultimates down and kill them and their families. End this once and for all. Fury nods. "We're working on it. Their technology is decades ahead of anything we found outside of the city. Besides Tony Stark, the identities of the Ultimates are closely kept secrets. They could be anyone," Fury explains. Emmanuel sighs and stands. "So you have nothing," he says as the others join him and they head for the door. But Fury calls for them to stop. "Wait, there's more," he says. He motions to the 3 random civilians that enter the chamber. With an order from Fury, the civilian disguises fall away to reveal 3 Hand agents. These are our men in Wakanda, Hinokuni, and New York, embedded with what we believe are likely the future recruits of the Ultimates, Fury explains. But the Council is not happy with the idea of agents operating in their territories without their permission. "You forget yourself, Fury! You work for us!" Members of the Council snap. But Fury isn't scared, and he shakes his head. "No, we all work for the same person, don't we?" he asks, glancing at the image of the Maker. Fury also explains that they might have an informant inside the Ultimates themselves. "But the fewer people that know, the better. For security," Fury explains. Hulk growls and steps before him, anger once again flashing in his eyes. "Are you implying that we are security risks? That the Ultimates have spies in our organization?" the Hulk demands. But Fury doesn't back down. "They could be anyone," he says easily. He glances at his watch. 5 minutes. The Council begins to argue amongst themselves, and once again, Fury is lost in his memories. Memories that shift and change, so that he isn't sure what is real anymore. Captain Britain notices that his eyes are closed. "I'm sorry, Fury. Are we boring you?" he asks. Fury finally opens his eyes. The timer has reached 0. "Always, but now you have my full attention. Initiate self-destruct sequence. Fury override code 29448Z84H/D, Fury calls out. The countdown begins, and Fury draws his pistol. He is known for some time that everything the Council has done is evil, that his mission under the Maker has been evil. His memories are scattered, maybe from being wounded in 1944, maybe from something else. But now he must redeem himself. He must help fix the world before it is too late. Fury smiles as he aims his pistol. "Come on, don't tell me you weren't half expecting this," he says, explaining that in a few seconds, the helicarrier will detonate and kill them all. "I just had to make sure we were far enough away from anywhere inhabited. I've got enough blood on my hands," Fury says softly. His resolve hardens. "I figure they've got a chance now. With you out of the way, with us out of the way, they've got a chance. That's gotta count for something," Fury says, almost to himself. Finally, the countdown ends, and Fury smiles. "See you all in hell," he grunts. But nothing happens, and his eyes widen in shock. The Council stares at him for a moment before they all burst out laughing. "His face gets me every time," someone says. "I suppose it's that time again. They barely last a year now," someone else laughs. Fury doesn't understand as they all keep laughing. Someone asks if he wrote a confession this time. I don't understand," Fury gasps, the pistol slacking in his hand. But Emmanuel steps forward, his eyes about to burn. "Oh, but that's the best part. You die never fully understanding. That's part of it," he says with joy as Fury suddenly bursts into flames, screaming as his skin melts away. "Men like you don't get redemption, Fury. Men like you get replaced," Emmanuel tells him as Fury falls to the floor. His body is a burnt husk. Hulk turns away. "Very good. Here's to the next Director of Hand having better luck with the Ultimates," he says. Viper nods. "It'll be nice to have a fresh perspective on the problem," she says. But Britain shrugs. "Well, you can hardly call it fresh. I'll never understand why the Maker continues to allow this," Britain notes as the Council moves through the helicarrier, finally arriving at the cloning chamber, where they find rows of Fury clones, all held in stasis. "To tell the truth," Emmanuel notes as he taps some buttons on the console and a fresh Fury begins to thaw, "I think it just makes him smile." And that is where we leave today's story. We now know what the Ultimates are up to and how the Maker's Council feels about everything now that a full year has passed. If you want to find out what happens next time, be sure to subscribe to the channel. It does help us out a lot. And of course, like and leave a comment if you enjoyed this video. And we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Betty.